Hey, how's it going? Josh here from Tech with Josh, and this is episode number 23 of Tech with Josh. This episode is titled Holiday 2025 iOS versus Android OS. Let's dive in. Why am I doing this? Because it's the holiday. You might be looking to get a new phone, or you just want to hear my take on this. So I just decided to do this episode. What do I mean by iOS versus Android OS? Well, that's the main two operating systems of phones nowadays. So iOS is Apple's operating system. Android OS is Google's operating system that Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, OnePlus, all of those phones use. So which do I prefer? I can't answer that because I have both. What do I mean I have both? Well, I have an iPhone 17 Pro Max currently with my main number on it. That everybody who messages me, calls me, goes to that. But I also have a Samsung Galaxy phone, 7, the new one? Why do I have two phones? Because they both do different things. Let's find out why. Well, as I'm recording this podcast on my MacBook Pro, and I'm looking at my server running off my Mac Mini, and I edit this podcast on my iPad Pro, and I wear AirPods Pro, you can probably tell why the iPhone is my primary. But iOS does certain things that Android can't do easily. So if you have the Galaxy Book or the Samsung tablet, you have the Galaxy Buds. It's similar to what Apple can do, but I have universal copy and paste on here for my Mac, for all my Apple devices. The seamless transition for the AirPods if I'm on my Apple TV watching something, or if I switch to my phone, seamless. I have HomePods for stereo speakers for the Apple TV. So I'm just engraved in the Apple ecosystem. But as I said, I do have an Android phone as well. But the main reason why the iPhone, other than the ecosystem, and because of me using mostly Apple products as my daily device, is because of iMessage. I know you're going to say RCS is a thing. Hey, I know that. It's one of my episodes if you look back. But with iOS, you also have certain polish. What do I mean by that? If you look at like apps like Instagram, you see that they run better on Apple devices. There are apps that come out on Apple first, like Blackmagic Camera, that came out on Apple first. You also have certain exclusive apps on Apple, such as Final Cut, Apple Books, Scrivener, which I use to write my books. If you didn't know that I'm a writer, you can find my books anywhere ebooks are sold. Joshua space A period space Rodriguez. But back to this. So certain apps are not on Android, and I understand that. iOS in the United States has a bigger customer base, so developers are incentivized to go on the App Store. It's always been the case. How do I know that? Well, I've had iPhones since the original iPhone, and I've had Android phones since the G2, aka the HTC Hero, because at that time I worked at Sprint. So I couldn't get the G1 that was at T-Mobile, and I have T-Mobile. Hey, but you had, yes, I had an AT&T SIM card for the iPhone. But Android does do certain things better. So, you know the memes. Hey, iPhone finally got this, even though Android's had it for years. That's completely true for most features. Super fast charging. The 17 Pro Max charges at what, like 45 watts? My Z Fold 7 is the slower one at 25 now, because it's the Fold. If I got the Ultra, be at the same speed. But it took years. The 16 Pro Max last year only charged at 25 watts. Before that was like 15. But Android phones do charge faster. There's some Android phones that can hit 100 watts outside the US. In the US, the new OnePlus is capped at 80. That's amazing. You can literally charge the phone from 0 to 100 in under an hour. And guess what? Some phones have what's called silicon carbide batteries. We don't know how long they last, honestly, because we've been using lithium ion. But guess what? With those batteries, if they're punctured, cut, anything, they still work, which is amazing. Because I used to repair phones, And sometimes, if a battery get punctured, it smells like a Jolly Rancher flavor, and you see it swell up and could cause a fire. And the Note 7, Notorious, was doing that because something was wrong with the battery, how it was regulated, and it would catch on fire spontaneous. It's a problem with lithium ion. So silicon carbon is set to fix that. So you have new technologies like that. You also have the refresh rate. What do I mean by refresh rate? Apple calls it promotion. It's a variable refresh rate. So by default, like movies are 24 frames per second. Whereas if you're gaming, you want higher frames. So you can see more, react faster. So when I'm gaming on my PC, I try to get as many frames as possible. But the Pro models have the promotions, and they're starting to bring it down to the regular ones. It's a 120 hertz display. Well, some phones that are Android go 144 or 165, so certain things like that. The batteries with the silicon carbide are bigger as well. You have more features like that. Flossie Carter, the YouTuber, goes, you also get dot protection. What's dot protection? Well, you know how you can have albums hidden behind your Face ID, your PIN code, stuff like that. On Apple, now you can hide apps. Well, Android's been doing that for years, and they take it a step further. You can actually have dot protection. You can have an entirely different home screen and apps hidden behind that. There's been apps on Android that's done this for at least 10 years. But it's just things like that. Android's about customization. You do icon packs. Now, with iOS, this version and the previous version, they start to let you customize more, put your apps wherever you want on the screen. Android's been doing that for years. Widgets. Android been doing that for years. So if you love customization, Android might be for you. You can customize it. Each phone has its own different launcher. Like I also have a Pixel phone I was trying out. I hate that launcher just because you can't remove the Google search bar. I don't like having it there. But what I do like having that Samsung has is called a work profile. So once you put in a certain type of email that's work related, like I have my business email that I have, and it has a different instance of apps. So I can go on work mode, and those apps don't interact with my main apps. So if you use a phone for work, you can separate like that. So you might like that, you might not. I personally prefer that because I can keep things separate for when I want to jump between certain things so they don't interact. Another thing is multitasking. I have a folding phone because it's the biggest screen for a phone, but you can run multiple apps at one time. It is almost 2026. I can run multiple apps on my iPad, but I cannot do it on my iPhone. Why? Because they want you to buy an iPad probably. And here's the thing, I own Apple stocks. I've never said I don't, but it is annoying. I have a Pro Max. Let me run multiple apps at one time. I remember on iOS 4.3 that they actually allowed app switching. You double press the home button, and at the bottom you had the music control and also all the little icons so you can switch between apps. Because before that there was no app switching, whereas Android, like I said, I was on the G2, the HTC Hero for Sprint. Guess what? It had HTC Sense, and you hold down the home button, I think it was, and they'll show you the last 6 apps you had open. So things like that. The reason Apple does it, honestly, is because they want one simple platform that anybody can pick up, 12-year-old to an 80-year-old, and know where certain things are. And guess what? I remember when I was working years ago, person told me another reason why is because if you're an older person and you go to ask someone for help next to you on like a bus or something, more likely they have an iPhone or they have experience with an iPad and they can show you how to do certain things. So it is very user friendly. But if you're a techie like me, you're gonna like Android because guess what? You just have so many features, so many apps at your disposal because you can also sideload apps. So you can find apps from a different app store right in the Play Store and you can sideload them in. I wouldn't recommend it if you don't know the developer, stuff like that. But it's more like a computer in that sense because I could find certain versions of certain files and install it on the site at my own risk, of course, and it just works. The main thing, though, that I like about Android is gaming. What do I mean by gaming? I'm not talking about mobile games, I'm talking about emulation. You can run certain emulators on here. I know you have Delta on iOS, which is okay, but you can have a 3DS emulator on here. As long as you legally own the ROM, you can play certain games on your phone, which I have done. And it just is great. And once again, the screen real estate, because I have a folding phone, is better for me. Your mileage might vary, but here's the thing. Not all Androids are created the same. Because it is a more vast marketplace, you can have a phone that runs laps around last year's model with the new Snapdragon Gen 5 or Gen 3 that we have now. But then again, you get what you pay for, and you could buy $100 phone from Walmart, and it can be slow as molasses and have bloatware. So that's the main thing. You buy these phones, and they have doubles of apps. I never got that. So you just sit there. If you buy a cheaper phone, you have games that just start downloading out of nowhere. But if you have one of the higher end phones, like let's say mid-range to flagship, mid-range is $400 to $600. Flagship is 800 up. That's the jargon we use in the tech space. But let's say you get a phone and you have Samsung's Gallery app, Google Photos app. You have Samsung Internet, Google Chrome, Samsung Notes, Google Keep, stuff like that. I don't think Keep comes on the phone. I don't know. I download it because I use it sometimes. The main thing is you have doubles of apps. Why? Because Samsung wants their apps on there, but because they use the Google operating system, they have to have the Google apps. And guess what? OnePlus has its own. Xiaomi has its own. Oppo has its own apps. So you have a lot of apps from default onto your phone. So you have to disable some, uninstall others, and it's tedious. It's not the end of the world, but it is tedious. Whereas on iPhone, you get the Apple apps, and that's it. In the past, you couldn't remove them. Now you can, and you can set certain things as the default. But it's just things like that that make me like iPhone setting up out the box. Sure, you have Smart Switch if you have a Samsung phone. You have the Google backup for pixels. But with iOS, it's just you sign in. You can do from the iCloud backup, you can scan the other phone. 1, 2, 3. It's just seamless, which is why Apple has the stores they have an experience. They're selling you on the experience. Whereas Android, you can have a great time with it or you can have a bad time with it. Personally, I love Android, but I've had horrible experiences with certain phones. My Galaxy S8 Plus was so bad with TouchWiz, which is what it was called before the One UI. It was so bloated, and I had to literally factory reset that phone so much. I had a OnePlus 3T. That phone gave me no problems. A Pixel, not Pixel, a Nexus 6P. Great phones, but it's just iPhones. You know what you're getting into. You're getting a lockdown ecosystem. You can't do certain things, and it makes no sense. Like the File Explorer on there still sucks compared to Android. Attaching it to FTP servers, things like that, and email clients have issues if it's not Apple Mail with notifications. It's if you're not using like the Apple default app, sometimes the experience isn't the greatest because I've gone through Outlook, Edison Mail, all these different things because I hate the Gmail app to this day, but it is what it is. The main thing is if you have a friend who has one and you want experience, ask them to play with their phone. But for me, I use both, and guess what? Most of the apps, the Google Play Books, Music, YouTube Music now, and Google Movies, you can get on Apple, and on Android, you can get Apple Music and Apple Movies. Not Apple Books. I found out the hard way. So every time I purchase books, I'm using Google Play Books because it's on iOS. But that's basically it. That's the way we're talking today. And if you like this episode, feel free to listen to the next one. Next episode, I'm going to talk on different kind of topic. Back in the day phones. What do I mean? Well, you'll find out, but I want to talk about the kings of the era. For Palm, in my opinion, for Android, for iOS, and what's crazy is two of them were around the same time. But that's it for this episode of the Tech with Josh show. And if you enjoyed it and you want to hear more of my voice for some reason, I don't know why, take a listen to Books by Josh audio immersion or Manga with Josh. And if you want to read my written work, you can go to booksbyjosh.com, or you can pick up one of my books. You can look up Private Eye, the first venture of Jason Streak, or you can look up Still Here, somehow, by Joshua A. Rodriguez, which is me. But catch you guys in the next one. Later.